basis of what I was saying was it's built upon concept of perspective. When Freud was asked, what is the purpose of psychoanalysis? He said, and remember, psycho means soul. So we can say soul analysis. And he said, to convert neurotic suffering into ordinary suffering. People thought he was going to say, to make people happy. That's the when you undergo this type of analysis, you'll come out a happy person. That's what they thought. That's not what he said. He said, oh, to convert neurotic suffering into ordinary suffering. It's a little bit of a clever repartee, but there's something to be said about that. So what I was suggesting by observation, that we see the cause of the suffering of Brajagopis and others is separation from Krishna, as given in the Gopi Gita, those slokas, Tava Katamritam Tapta Jivanam, etc. Then we hear in the Bhagavatam, Bhayam Datiya Binibeshi Tatsyat, Ishada Petasya Biparyayo Smriti. Here we want to say forgetfulness, but it causes separation. I'm applying it to this also and saying that the real cause of our present suffering is separation from Krishna. But this is one type, that's another type. So both can be a starting point. So when we read in the Gita, but it's qualified by the word Sukriti, so it's saying people in different types of distress conditions, I'll say it that way for the sake of this talk. If they have the Sukriti, doesn't say everybody, but it says Jana Sukritin Arjuna, those who have sufficient Sukriti, where when they're in these circumstances, it may be a catalyst for coming in connection, spiritual search. Not everybody. Everyone is suffering in different ways. But why is it one person, like Prabhupada says in one place, when someone realizes that material life, the complexity of material life is a constant source of perplexity, bewilderment, confusion, and anxiety. He said it behooves such a person to approach a spiritual master. But not everybody does that. So the key word there is Sukriti. Those of sufficient Sukriti, when they find themselves in some completely distressing circumstance or depression, right? Veda Vyasa's depression led him to dive deep into reality. Of course, that's high example, Veda Vyasa. But someone within this world, it may be temporary also. We hear of smashana vairagya, the renunciation of at the funeral pyre. People go to a funeral and momentarily they're thinking, or I heard some news today, some horrible news we hear about some children dying somewhere or some other people, and then we may think, what is this world? It's so brutal. Prabhupada would sometimes quote Saraswati Thakur saying, it's not a place fit for gentlemen. And these different feelings may come to us. But then they leave easily also. Right? So again, in the Gita, Krishna is saying, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. If you're got the right darshan perspective of where you are in the world, then you'll realize this suffering, birth, death, old age, and disease, these are things that are inescapable. And you're going to have to deal with them, whether you're in Krishna consciousness or not. as Guru Maharaj defines Shudra in relation to the Ramachandra pastime of beheading Shudraka. He said, Shudra, by definition, we heard this a long time ago, means one who wails or laments. Right? That's what it literally means, Shudra. Who's crying out in agony, anxiety, wailing, lamenting. Why? Guru Maharaj, his explanation was, he said, one who accepts this life as all in all, this world as all in all, he will have to lament. That's why Śukadev, again, very strong language, telling Parīkṣit Mahārāj near the end of the Bhagavatam, Tantu Raja Marisheti paśu-buddhi mimam jahi. I mean, it almost sounds insulting. He's saying, to think that you will die is paśu-buddhi. Animals think they will die. He's saying, a spiritually realized, advanced person, he won't think like that. Dhiras tatra namuhyati. He won't be bewildered by this. Socrates, bring the hemlock. Big glass. Saying that this, my body will be finished, but I won't be. He knew that. Castro wrote some letters in the 1950s. They discovered these kind of like spiritual letters he wrote. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he practically said, once you realize that you're not your material body, but that you're a spiritual being, you're not afraid of dying and, for the revolution, etc. Even he could understand that on some level. Socrates, Fidel Castro. That's why Mahaprabhu was telling Sanatan, to offer your body, that won't get you Krishna.